Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, okay, are you ready? So we will be discussing easy Minitab, alright? So for all of you guys who want to know more about how to use Minitab, how to import your data to Minitab and create different kinds of charts, capability analysis, Pareto chart or SPCs, statistical sparse control charts, etc. So today we will be showing you the easiest way on how to do it, all right? Plus, we have additional topics that we will be covering for you today. So that will be number one, capability analysis. The second one will be process stability. Third one is hypothesis testing, Six Sigma computations, and how will you actually compute for your baselines and your targets.
Software, student properties, Minitab 20. So it's just they don't have 21 out yet. So basically, what we're going to do is we're going to start with the deck 3.2.2. So back in the measure and analyze phase, and we're focusing on the whys, the outputs, the primary metrics that are important to the customer. Okay. So what we do with all the primary metrics is, and with X data as well, key contributing factors, you can analyze that in a similar fashion. But predominantly, you're going to be analyzing output factors, output metrics using these type of techniques. Now, what I try and do is use a hospital analogy, okay? And for every patient that checks into the hospital, what do they do if they're going to stay overnight? What do they do?
They check into the hospital.
Right, and then what do they do? The doctors, nurses are all over you doing what?
Assessments and tests.
Measuring and analyzing, right?
Yeah.
So what are they measuring? What are they measuring when you check into the hospital?
Your blood pressure, all the data you have, blood type and the temperature.
Temperature, your weight, your oxygenation level of blood. They've got the little thing on your finger. They might have an EEG monitoring your heart, or EKG, excuse me, EKG monitoring your heart, EEG monitoring your brain, whatever. Okay. So, but they're going to collect your vital statistics. That's what they call it, right? On your medical chart, here's your vital statistics for Karina. She checked into the hospital, or Bill or Bob or Tom or Sue. Okay, so I like to think of assessing the output data much like checking a patient into the hospital. Right, you find out how healthy are they, stable, are they in critical condition, are they near death, or are they healthy and everything's just fantastic. Okay. And we can use statistical analysis and graphical analysis to understand the health of the patient, i.e. the health of the process, i.e. the process output metric. Okay? Do you like that analogy?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to go over the same kind of steps a few times, and these are the steps that you would go through in order to analyze it. Now, to start, we're going to just start with something simple. This is just something you do at the beginning of your project, and then you continue to update it as you collect data. Okay, this is your primary metric chart, and that's what we're going to start with. So if we go to Minitab, and in your tools and reference information in the Measure and Analyze Toolkit is the project metrics Minitab file. Okay, and that's what I'm in. There's the helicopter exercise data, where if you didn't do the exercise, at least you have some sample data to work with, and that's what we're going to work with today. Okay. Okay. So then, and did you do 30 samples?
I did the last file I sent you. I just, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, we'll work with what we have. Okay. With what we have today. And so basically in the project metrics file in Minitab, the new way you can jump around, you used to be able to jump around using Alt, Control, and different keys, but now they took that away. So you go to View, you can look at the data and the output, or the data only, or the output only. Okay. So I'll be jumping back and forth between these. We'll start with data only view. Okay. Now you can see all your outputs and all your things like that over here on the side. Okay. Now for the file itself, it's got tabs in here. Okay. And you can take around with control page down or control page up. It's pretty cool. Okay. Now we're going to start with the primary metric data. And this is the helicopter data. It's just a sample of what it would look like if you were building a primary metric chart for the paper helicopter company. It's got the test number in the one column. It's got the actual data that we've collected so far in the next. It's got the baseline that's been established for that initial actual data. And it's got the goal over here, representing a 25% reduction. Okay. Okay. So it's just sample data. Now, if you wanted to graph that in a time series, you'd go to graph, time series plot, and you'd pick multiple because you're going to be plotting the actual, the goal, the baseline, et cetera. Basically you're going to select, if I clear that out, select actual, and you can hold the shift key down to kind of select multiple things. Okay. And then you can click select down here, and it moves them into the series box. So these are the series that we're going to actually do the time series plot, including all three of those. And for the time scale, we're going to use the stamp test number. Okay, we're going to use the test number column as our, if we had days or hours or whatever, we'd include that there as the scale. So now we'll switch to our output only view. Okay, and here's our plot. This is our primary metric chart. You like that?
Yeah.
Okay, so it shows the actual variation of the process. It shows its baseline, and then it shows its goal. Holy cow, look where we have to go, team. Okay, so it establishes the real rhythm of the direction that the whole project has to go. Okay, now if we go back to view data only, the next thing that we're going to do, so we basically did this. Okay, created the primary metric chart, and that's something you could do once you get Minitab. You can go ahead and practice through these
primary metric chart
slides as well. Okay. And then here's basically the beginning steps of checking someone into the hospital. And first we assess, is the process normal? Remember, we talked about normality. Basically makes it easier. The tools, the statistical analysis tools, et cetera, are more robust for normal data, although you can easily work with normal that's non-parametric or non-normal as well. It's just a different set of statistical tests. Then we'll assess the process mean for each of these processes. We'll assess whether they're stable or not. And then we will look at whether or not we can determine the baseline. So this is an example of, if you remember in this deck, we talked about stability. And if a process is stable, you can know its baseline. Okay. The baseline is always the most current, stable period of the process. It represents where did we start. And only variation inherent to the process is present. So if you had all this abnormal variation in there, there's no baseline, there's no stability. Okay. So the baseline is the average of the most current, most recent stable period. Okay. No stability, Do you have the baseline? If it's not stable, if a process isn't stable and you see red dots on the control chart, is it stable?
No.
And if it's not stable, can you know its baseline? Will it have a baseline?
You will use the other hard assessments.
No.
Mm.
The right answer is, so it's just like think of a patient in the hospital, right? You check their blood pressure one day or 1 hour, and it's 180 over 20. And then you check it the next hour and it's 120 over 80. And then you check it the next hour and it's 60 over 150. And then it's all over the place, right? Their blood pressure is just crazy. It's up, it's down, it's up, it's down, it's up, it's down. Are they stable? No, they're not stable. Do you know what their baseline blood pressure is? No, there is no baseline. There isn't, it isn't stable. And if a process isn't stable, there is no baseline. Say that out loud.
Yeah, if the process is not stable, you can't know the baseline. But last time in the fundamentals, you say if the process is stable, your baseline is the mean. But if it's not stable, you can use this other tests to know the baseline. Or it's not, you can't really know the baseline.
No.
Okay.
No. The other test that we do, what you might be thinking of, is the capability analysis. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is capable is another question that we'll ask. That's another, sort of like if they stress test you in the hospital, right? How capable is your heart or your lungs or whatever? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Your kidneys. So basically, the capability analysis is one where you can say it's not capable, but that's why I'm improving it. Okay.
Okay.
And the helicopter process starts with a very, very low signal level. Okay. It's not capable, but you can improve it. Okay.
Okay.
So not stable. You don't know the baseline. You have to collect more data. Then you can know the baseline. That's probably what I said. Then in addition, if it's capable, keep going. If it's not capable, you still can make it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about capability in a minute. But basically for baseline, so we're going to ask the question at the end, are any of these, can we know the baseline? And if we can, what is it? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
For these processes. So it's in the, here we go. It's in the primary metric analysis folder. So the first thing we do when we check a patient into the hospital is we do stats, basic statistics, graphical summary. Okay. This is sort of the basic vital statistics for a process. So we're going to pick process A through process C, and we're going to say, go ahead and select those, and we'll say, okay. We'll say view output only. And then you can see. Now, we haven't gone over this a lot, but the normality test, the Anderson-Darling test, is such that if you have a very low P, the process is not normal. If your P is 0.05 or less, not normal. But if it's over that, you're normal.
Normal. Okay.
And with the graphical summary, what we do is we look at both the numbers and the pictures. So does it look normal?
Yes.
How does it fit that bell? Pretty good, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Pretty well, I should say. Pretty well. The Anderson-Darling p-value is what? Right here.
0.898.
Holy cow. It couldn't be much more normal, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Very normal. Now, what's its mean?
21.18.
There you go. And there's its standard deviation, 1.24. You can see all the other basic statistics about it. Its skewedness, its kurtosis, blah, 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 right? Okay. It's even got like a little box chart of the distribution down below. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Let's look at process A. So that's normal. And here's the mean. Do we know what the baseline is yet?
Yes.
No. Is it stable? We don't know, right? You have to do a control chart to find out if it's stable or not. This is just normal.
You can't know the stability based on p-value.
Right. This is just normal or not.
Normality. Okay. Normality test.
Yeah. This is just normality. And hey, if it is stable, that mean might be the baseline, but at least it's the average, right? It's the average. Process B. So we know part of the story, but not all of the story, whether there's a baseline for these or not. Here's process B. Is that normal or not? What do you think?
The p-value is less than, so it's not normal.
Not normal. Does it look normal?
No.
Oh, very abnormal. So those are that's the average, and that's the standard deviation. Look at that standard deviation. It's like a third of the value of the primary metric. That's really a lot of variation. Okay, process C. What do we find out about this? Normal or not?
Normal.
Normal, and there's the mean, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is our helicopter data. You can see here's the average 2.05, and there's our standard deviation. So, but let's see. So now let's go back to the data. Now for process A, we want to find out if it's stable or not. In order to find out if the process is stable, you go to stat, control charts, variable charts for individual bubbles, variable charts for individuals, and then individuals, because we have individual data points, right?
Okay.
Now, if we look at process A, and for eye chart options, what you have to do is you have to go to tests and say, perform special tests, all tests for special causes. And then that checks off every one of these, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, it starts out with perform selected tests, where it might just do one test. Or you can pick which tests it does, okay? But what we always do for Agile Sigma is we always pick all tests. These are all the ways in which there can be variable behavior that's not intrinsic to the process. And so let's go ahead and let her rip. Let's see. Oh, we didn't. This is from another one I ran. Stamp index. Okay. That's the kind of stuff. Sometimes you'll end up with information in a window, like you just saw, where it's sort of from the last time you ran that test. It keeps the data in there in the fields. So the key thing here is we know we ran all tests. Do we see any red dots?
No.
So therefore, we know that process A is what?
Stable.
Stable. So if it's stable, what can we know?
The baseline is the mean.
Exactly. So in this case, we know the baseline for process A is
21.184.
That's the standard deviation. Beautiful. Doing beautiful. Okay. Now you can always do Control E, and that brings up the previous dialog box without having to go to the menus and all that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're going to just run it for process B. Let's see if process B is capable or stable. Excuse me. My apology. Stable. Up. Wait a minute.
Red dots. Yeah.
Red dots. The plot thickens. Process B. Not stable. So, hey, what's the baseline? Do we even need to look at the thing? No, there's no
baseline.
No baseline. You have to keep collecting more data and assessing it for its stability. You need about 14 to 15 data points in order to really establish stability. Okay.
Okay.
Because that's why we do like the trials of maybe just 15 trials as opposed to 30.
15 to 30 data points, right?
Yeah.
So it's here that the N, that's 45.
45. Yes, this has 45. And what I'm saying is, so you could collect, let's say, 10 more days worth of data, or 5 more days, or 5 hours, or 5 shifts, or whatever. And maybe that, if you lop off the last and just look at the most current, let's say 20 days or 15 days, maybe that gives you stability, and then you can baseline that and move forward. Okay. So you
Okay.
can start with a smaller window. Most importantly, you want to collect data going into the future with sort of, hey, let's get some good stable data here. So let's find out about process C. If we look at the control chart for process C, boom, how's it look?
Normal.
Well, no, stable.
Stable, yeah. Stable.
No, see, it's staying within the control limits. If a process stays within its control limits and it doesn't exhibit any behaviors, I think they're type 1 or type 2 that are within the control limits, like where you start to see a trend, or there's a run, or there's too many points on one side, or too many points in one region and then another region, etc. Okay, those are all the tests that are being run on this data that determined that for process B, hey, you violated the thing. Look at how many points in a row above the mean, right? This one's outside the control limits. And it puts the number of the tests that it violates next to each red dot, okay? This violated rule 2, this violated rule 2, which are too many dots or too many points on one side of the mean, okay, in this one region, et cetera, et cetera. We'll go more into that in the into some later decks, okay?
Okay.
But that's how you can basically look at here it tells you the different tests and which ones were failed, okay? So basically then for process C, we know its baseline. If we look at because it is stable, therefore for process C, the baseline is what?
2.0538.
Bingo, that's exactly correct. So now we've filled these in. We know the baseline of the first one around 20, baseline of the second one's around 2, and the baseline of B is don't know. Okay?
Yeah.
So normality, stability, baseline. Okay, so that basically wraps up that deck and what we would do there. Okay, we would be saving the data. Let's see, I'm sorry. Let me go back to that deck for a minute. My apologies. Then within the project metrics, in addition to that brief introduction to Minitab, we do an exercise where we do our paper helicopter test. And we conduct the 30 trials, we collect the flight data, then we perform our stability, normality, and capability tests. We'll add capability to the tests that we run now on our patient to find out how healthy they are. And then we created the primary metric chart a minute ago, so we won't do that, but we did do that. It looks like that. So what the process is you collect the 30 data points and you load them as the flight time data in Excel, and then you copy them in and paste them into Minitab, determine the average and the standard deviation or the mean, determine if it's normal and if it's stable, if it's capable, and determine the initial baseline and signal level. Create the primary metric chart. So those are the things that we do, okay? So this is the standard stuff that we do when we check a process into the hospital, or a patient into the hospital. First, we do the graphical summary, and we assess the normality, and we assess what the mean and the standard deviation is. Then we assess stability using a control chart, just like we just did, looking for no red data points. If it's a stable and in control, then we know it's baseline. We analyze capability, which will use the capability analysis, and we'll set the limits, the customer limits here at 1.5 to 2.0 seconds for the flight time, okay? And then we'll assess its sigma level using the I6 Sigma calculator. Pretty cool, huh? Okay, so I think we didn't do this in fundamentals, so we'll show you how this works. So if we go to the data view only, and we go to the sample helicopter data, the before flight time data is here, okay? And there's 30 trials. It's all loaded and labeled as before. So what's the first thing we do when we check a patient into the hospital? What do we run?
The graphical summary.
Summary, there you go. Bingo, bango, flight time before, load it up. Let's see what it looks like. Let's view our output. Normal,
Yes.
mean, this is the same as process C, so 2.05,
Yeah.
0.1. Okay,
So where can we find the capability here?
not yet.
Not
We're
yet.
gonna do
Okay.
that's Act 3. This is Act 1. Okay, think of this as Act 1. And the first stage of tests that you're going to be going through are your graphical summary. Is it normal or not? That's the basic question you're answering here. Okay.
Okay.
Then what we do is, then we run a control chart, Act 2, for individuals. Boom. Now we're looking at the flight time before. We want to check the eye chart options and make sure we're still running all the tests for special causes. Okay.
For all of that.
They're all checked off.
If
Now,
if I use the IMR chart, it's gonna be wrong.
the I and M&R is if you're collecting data
Moving ranges, right?
that's part of the I and M&R is more where you've got the smaller sample size,
Okay, less than 10, something like that.
less than 8 or something like that.
Okay.
You know, that's where you want to track the moving range as well as the individual on a control chart to see if the moving range is in control. And if the moving range is in control, then you can see if the eye chart's in control. Okay.
Okay.
And I think it's the sample size. INMR, I think, is 8 or less. We have more than that. So we're doing just the individual chart. And so in this case, we're going to use, for the scale, we're going to use the stamp of flight number. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Boom. There's our before flights. Any red dots?
No.
Nope. So we're stable.
Stable. Yeah.
Yeah. So in Act 1, we figured out with the graphical summary if we were
Normal.
right.
Then if it's stable.
And then the control chart is used to assess whether it's
Stable or not.
right, stable or not. This one's stable. So far, so good, right? Normal and stable. Heck, we made this data ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Now for capability analysis, you go to quality tools, capability analysis, and which one do you think we should pick?
Normal.
That's the kind of data we have. Now, want to look at our C2 data, our flight time before data. We have 30 subgroup size. Our lower spec is 1.5 and our higher spec is 2. The customer would like to be faster. Okay.
Well, who will define this lower spec and upper spec?
That's the customer. That's the voice of the customer speaking to the voice of the process. That's what this capability analysis brings together. How variable your process is and where its mean is relative to where the customer's specs are.
So
You put the,
okay.
go ahead.
So we will let the client define this one.
Yes.
Okay.
So like think of a manufacturing example, okay?
The cookies.
Or Legos. Let's talk about Legos for a second, okay? Legos have a tolerance of 5/1000ths of an inch. Okay?
Tolerance of 5/1000 each.
5/1000ths of an inch. So when they're manufacturing Legos, the little round thing and the hole that it goes into have to be plus or minus. What, you know, if it's a 1/2 inch, let's say, plus or minus 0.005. So it could be 0.005 less or 0.005 more, but no more than that, or they won't fit. You follow? Or they won't stick. They'll fall apart. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. I worked at one place where they made Allen wrenches, like the hex wrenches. Decided, you know, to turn the little hex nuts and things. Those have to be precise. If you don't get those 6 angles right on that thing, it's not gonna fit in the little hex hole, right? you know? So it's those things that, and they had a little laser thing to measure the angles on it. And they had the they had the capability analysis built that was so cool. And they monitored every day. They'd sample a certain number and see if they were within their spec limit for what the angle variation could be, very, very small. Or Legos, they have to measure them for that very, very small measurement variation they can allow for that part to be permissible or not, okay? Whether it's a defect or not. Pretty cool, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Customer, sometimes the design creates the parameters within which it can vary. But this is saying how much can that output vary, and it's still within workable limits, and it can work in the application it's designed for. Make sense?
Yes.
In this case, let's look at it with 1.5 to 2.0. Now, in this case, let me just check something here. There's a toggle on this under the options for the capability analysis, where you can look at either just the capability stats, the CPs, the CPKs, the PPs, PPKs, et cetera, or you can look at the benchmark Zs. Okay. First, we're going to just look at the capability stats. Okay.
Okay.
Now, we also ran, let's see, we can also run a couple of additional, let's see. That's all we want to do. Okay. So in this case, you look at your PPKs and your CPKs, and do they look horrible, or do they look like really horrible?
They're negative.
They're negative. That's horrible. Okay.
Yeah.
Horrible. So you can see the customer's goal posts are over here. They're saying, kick the goal, kick it over here.
And it's outside.
All the time. Over there, you're kicking the ball to the right of the goalposts every time, except a few times you get it in. Is that cool? See that? So, customer happy?
No.
Now, how many defects do we have overall? What's our parts per million defect level?
2.32. 671,738.31.
Correct. So basically, that tells us we have 750,000 errors out of 1,000,000 tries. Boy, you're not going to be on the field goal team for long, Karina. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to let you kick field goals for too many games. So, what you do is you say, okay, that's how many defects I have. I can graphically show you. Holy cow, process owner. Holy cow, champion. Look at how, we're missing the point with this process. It's not meeting the customer specification. Now, let's say for a minute we had a real nice customer and they said, I don't mind if we're a little bit late. We can be all the way from 1.5 to 2.5 seconds, Karina.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We're from California. Okay. We're from Washington, from Seattle. We're really patient. We're laid back, right? Look at this. How many defects now?
114.
Woo! We're Six Sigma. Love ya. Boom. Put that in I Six Sigma. So we'll put those two in there, and you'll see how much of a difference the customer expectation for your process or your requirements, your specifications make. So now you can think of this as like trying to, you guys get rated on time performance, how many times out of the gate on time versus not, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you could use this type of analysis to show at what sigma level are we performing to meet that, on time performance. And then you could show by how many minutes are you missing it by. You could see if you're close to the goalpost, not close to the goalpost. Make sense?
Yeah, I'm just really thinking about how the computation of PPM is done, because we just had 30 sample size, and it's computing like earlier it's like 600,000 plus defects.
Oh no, it's all algorithmic to determine the parts per million. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It looks at the spec. It's all based on the spec, right?
Okay.
So because once I widened out the spec limits, look at this. The defects go to there's no spillage, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything's inside the goalposts. You're kicking them really well. and it's nearly centered, okay?
Mhm.
So these numbers are going to be very similar. See how the middle of the spec limit is right about where you're centered. So you're going to see similarity in all these numbers. They're going to be like the PP and the CP are going to be very similar. PPL and this are going to be similar. The CPK and PPK are going to be similar. That tells you you're centered, okay?
Mhm.
And so basically, let's put in the 660, 671 into the I6 Sigma calculator. Have you ever used that?
We use this in the fundamentals training.
Okay, sounds good. And if you remember, and so basically, if we put in, what is it, 671, 738, something like that,
Mhm.
you get a 1.06. Okay, your defect rate is 67%. I'm a 1.06 sigma. I'm in the red zone. I'm horrible. I need to be improved. Okay, I'm stable, but I'm really not capable. Okay, you
Yeah.
need to be capable. You really want to have CPKs and PPKs of 1.33 or higher. Okay, and on the web, it's really interesting. So if you use the help function, for example, here's where you can, you just click on help when you're on the normal capability analysis. It brings you to this, and it tells you, you basically want to look at your results and graphically, are they centered and how well do they fit within the limits and all that. And here's where you want to compare your CPK with a benchmark that represents the minimum value that is acceptable for your process. Many industries use a benchmark value of the 1.33 for CPK and for PPK. Okay. So, is the process capable? Not really. Is it doing okay? It's limping along. Can we improve it? I think we can.
Yeah.
It's stable. I think we can. So, if we go back to our deck. So, we loaded the data, determined the mean and the standard deviation. We determined that it's normal. We determined that it's stable. Excuse me, I'm sorry. In the wrong deck. So I apologize. So we used the graphical summary to determine the mean and the standard deviation. We assessed that it was normal.
Mm-hmm.
Then we used the control chart in Act 2 to determine no red dot points and it is stable. It's in control. No bad behaviors. We analyzed its capability based on a spec limit of 1.5 and 2.0 between those two limits, and analyzed its overall capability and determined that its sigma level on the I6 Sigma calculator was 1.06. Now, what if we had 114? Boy, that real gracious customer didn't mind when we darn landed that helicopter. Woohoo, 5.19. Okay.
Almost 6 Sigma.
Yeah, we're almost 6 Sigma because they're just really, liberal on their requirements. Now, you remember this one where, let's see, I'll just go back. Oh, I'll go forward. Okay, so with the 671, 738, we ended up with 1.06. Now, you remember with our advanced calculator, that's with a 1.5 gimme, right?
The shift.
What if we put 0 in there? Oh, let's see, it's still. It's not recalculating. That's interesting. Let me try it this way. There, now it's working. Still says it's 1.06 because it won't calculate a negative. Like here, if I put in 500,000 with a 0 shift, see, it gives you 0. It won't give you anything less than 0 out of here. But Minitab will, okay? Do you remember the toggle with the benchmark Z? Under options on the capability analysis, you can toggle to see whether you see benchmark Z is the signal level. And this is the pure unvarnished truth. No kidding around. Oh, this is the one with the easy spec. Let's go to 2.
2.
Okay, here the real. Okay, if you add 1.5 to it, you end up with 1.06, and you feel good.
So the Z bench is.
That makes sense.
So what does
They
this?
don't. Go ahead.
What does the Z bench defines again?
That's the sigma level. So like Minitab didn't used to have sigma level in the capability analysis. You always had to take your parts per million and go to the I6 Sigma calculator and calculate it.
Mm-hmm.
And it always had a 1.5 adder. That's how Six Sigma works. Everybody gets 0.5 to start the game.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Minitab, when they added sigma level analysis into their capability analysis, they said 1.5, we're not adding anything. You get the answer you get. The math is the math. No fudge factors. Okay. So that's why it says -1, -0.44. That's the true sigma level of the process, negative. Okay.
Okay.
And the calculator, it adds the 1.5. So you're, what the heck, I'm like, if we went
Okay, it's because of the shift.
right, this won't let it go negative. Like if I put the 671, 738 in here, then I said, just shift it 0.44. Okay, it's going to tell me it's 0 over here. Oh, how about 0.45? It just wants to give me 1.06 for this. I don't know why.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay.
It doesn't look to be right.
So it's better to just use the Minitab for the sigma calculation.
The unvarnished truth. And you can add 1.5 to it and say, but anyway, it will, Minitab will work. I mean, I6 Sigma calculator will work if you use the base calculator. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Not using the advanced one. It just gives you, there's your answer, 1.06. Okay. And when you look at the advanced calculator that it should be 1.5. That's what it's doing. It's always preset to the 1.5 when you come here. Okay.
Okay.
Does that make sense? That's how it works, but I don't agree with it. Okay. I'm not a big proponent of adding, like, all processes shift towards more capable, fewer defects over time. No,
Yeah,
they start to drip away from good performance.
I
Right?
don't understand to the adding of 1.5 or the sigma shift. It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't, but that's what it does. If you come into
Or
the sigma
maybe just to make the other Six Sigma practitioners good because it's not getting negative.
right, no one gets a negative.
Okay.
See, look at this. I just went.
So I had a good idea. So next time that the people will be showing me their defects, I'm gonna compute it with Minitab, not this one. So I will see if it's negative or not.
There you go. And if they used I6 Sigma, it's built in to add 1.5 to it because processes shift over time and magic occurs. Anyway,